Okay, welcome back. It's time for an episode of the Tape Crusaders. You haven't had one of these in a while, but DC done put out Justice League movie finally after talking about it all these years. And that means that we managed to rouse Mike Thomas from his Batcave after many weeks off of podcasting. Mike, how are you? Do you have a message for the world?
I think you and I, as the foremost feminists in the world, deserve to pat ourselves in the back a little bit.
Oh, God.
And
yeah, the world sort of ate itself while we've been off.
We've been calling Bryan Singer a rapist for quite a while, and now it's just become trendy to call out celebrities for being rapists. Yeah. Did we get credit for this? No, we do not. Although I do think there's actually, I think in our X-Men Last Stand conversation, we at one point say, well, we've taken a step down in terms of quality of directors, but we've taken a step up in terms of rapists. Yeah. Turns out we were wrong.
No, we haven't. So it's just all downhill. But yeah, speaking of Brett Ratner, he is technically involved in the production of Justice League through Rat Pack, whatever it is, or what I don't know what his company's called, but they're not going to be involved in Wonder Woman 2. Thanks to Gal Gadot. But they were involved in Justice League, and that's a movie we both saw recently. Hey, I brought it all back.
I think she released a statement saying she actually is not involved in that decision.
Yeah, she's not, but like she said she wouldn't do it unless they were out.
But I think she walked that back to a degree.
Okay. I'm sure they could make her if they really wanted to, but I would imagine it'd just be easier for them to...
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway... Justice League finally happened. It's DC's Avengers. It's all the DC heroes coming together to form a super team to fight a common threat. They have been talking about doing this movie for a long time, with Zack Snyder at the helm. Zack obviously had to drop out late in the filming due to tragic personal circumstances. Joss Whedon stepped in and ordered a lot of reshoots. The budget for this film swelled to ridiculous proportions. As of this recording, it is looking like it's not going to make $100 million on its opening weekend, which is not good for
in America. The only number that matters.
Exactly. Yes. So it's not looking great. The stigma around DC is strong as ever, but as it's time for us to talk about it because this is Tape Crusaders because Batman's in it. So hey, we're back. Okay, Mike's going to kick us off with a soliloquy about why he doesn't like Justice League.
Compared to Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, and Man of Steel, Justice League is fairly... inoffensive might be a strong word, but does not piss me off as a fan. Does not piss me off as a movie viewer. Fairly indifferent towards it. However, it struck me in the 24 hours plus since I've watched it, just how shitty DC is still at making movies. And making movies is hard. But they're not hiring people who have never made movies before. Maybe as an entity, DC is new in terms of producing movies, but they're not hiring film students to make these movies. And it'd be one thing if they were still taking missteps or something like that, or they were trying something weird and it really backfired. And I could even argue that Batman vs. Superman was an attempt to do something different and just failed spectacularly because they had the wrong people making the movie. They're just so bad at making movies. And, we briefly talked about your thoughts on the movie beforehand. And it's not that I don't think any of your points are unreasonable or that people couldn't make excuses for certain things or say, well, you let the good outweigh the bad or something like that with this. But, I feel like that's all, graded on a curve. Objectively, they're just still really bad at, the basics of storytelling and movie making at this point. And, why? Why is this movie such a mess? Even it's very watchable. So much is happening. It's much more viewer-friendly in terms of color palettes and general tone. But, it would really be one of the weakest Marvel movies, right? It wouldn't this is. I would put the first two Thor movies above this. I'd put all the Iron Man movies above this. This is because at least those feel like actual stories and movies. This is just really poor work all around. And I don't it's just a million, not a million, but a dozen mediocre blockbusters come out every year. This is just one of them. But I don't know. It just seems like it shouldn't be at this point. Like, they should know how to make good movies. Like, no matter like what's come before. Like, I mean, I think Wonder Woman's a perfectly good example. It's just like, no matter what the bullshit of the first 3 DC, EU, whatever films were, like, there's like, okay, we're going to make a decent enough movie. Like, I don't like it. It's inexcusable to me that Justice League is not a decent enough movie. And I think at this point, kind of something we talked about very early in the year when we did an article predicting was that even if Wonder Woman was good, the nature of where it takes place in the timeline really means that we can't say like, oh, they've turned things around. Like, if you go back like to the beginning of the Marvel and like, let's say, I don't know, Thor, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk were just all like universally like panned for the most part. Like, if Captain America was good, that wouldn't like suddenly like restore faith in the idea of the franchise. And I think that's largely what's played out here. Like, there's no reason to be excited for this movie. The box office is not going to do great because there's not going to be any positive word of mouth. I don't think there'll be a ton of negative word of mouth or overly negative word of mouth. Like, this is not going to be a punching bag film. But it's just so thoroughly just like there. And why is it only just there? I'd rather them fail spectacularly than what they're doing here.
Okay. This is where we differ on this, because I think, given the status quo of DC and the public perception of DC, and with them trying something huge in Batman v Superman, inarguably a very large thing to attempt, a high concept thing to try, and, you know, taking their swing and a miss with Suicide Squad, which again was an attempt to be a bit different, they have tripped over themselves so much that I think, honestly, they did exactly what they should have done here, and they made a film that doesn't try to be too much, and it just gets in and out in 2 hours. You know, this is originally listed as being a 3-hour movie. Joss Whedon got his hands on it, cut it right down to 2 hours. It didn't feel like a slog in the way that Batman v Superman did.
No.
And
it's an easy watch.
Yeah, it is entirely that. And I can absolutely see an argument for how parts of this are just a bit like, you know, they just wash over you. Some parts of it are a little bit lame. Like, they gave away basically every joke in the trailers. Like, as much as 2 years ago, I feel that little exchange between the Flash and Batman was out there. And, like, maybe that would have been funny to see the first time, but, like, you know, seeing this footage I've seen for 2 years now, it didn't work for me. But I actually generally, for the most part, enjoyed myself watching it. And to compare it directly to Marvel, like, is, you know, that's not going to come out in their favour, because Marvel have a lot more films on them and they've had some big hits out of it. And, you know, you mentioned how in a world where, like, those early Marvel movies were completely panned and then Captain America was good, would it have, you know, turned everything around? The difference is Marvel exists now and DC are having to compete with them, if that makes sense. Like, in a world where there is no hugely successful MCU, I don't think this is as much of a thing, the concept of DC being bad at movies or whatever.
I mean, well, the worst thing that happened to DC was the success of Marvel, and it's not just that's what I'm trying to say. Not from a narrative standpoint, though. Not from like a public narrative standpoint. From the fact that this is what they decided to try to do.
They wanted to skip ahead to Justice League without putting in the work. Is what I mean. We got into an argument about this where we differed on, like, the way I was phrasing it made it sound like Marvel were just like, oh, and I guess we'll do Avengers, and like, that wasn't entirely what I meant. But the DC have very clearly pegged to be like, well, Avengers made them a ton of money, let's just do that over here. And they didn't lay the groundwork by introducing these characters gradually and making you give a shit. And, you know, they didn't have the fortune of a Robert Downey Jr.-esque casting because, I mean, in my opinion, that was the best decision Marvel made in the early going, because that portrayal... Yeah, exactly. It like, blew everyone away.
Because, like, Hemsworth was not up for it then, and he was kind of characterized poorly, or in a way that doesn't play to his strengths in the beginning.
Yeah.
Evans became Captain America in the Winter Soldier. Yeah. A little bit in the Avengers, but he definitely was not Captain America in the first one. Which you could argue makes sense narratively. But they switched Holt castings.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson was always a side character. Unfortunately, Renner's always been a side character. Like, they were
not Robert even credited in Thor.
Robert Downey Jr. deserves a huge amount of credit for carrying the whole idea of it. Before, they could exist without him.
And, like, maybe DC thought they'd done that by casting Ben Affleck as Batman. I don't know. It's a huge name. to take it on.
But
I don't know, but
it's like it's a huge name, but not like in that way. And also like they basically tailored Iron Man to the strengths of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, absolutely. If you pick up an Iron Man comic in the last like decade, he's just Robert Downey Jr. now. Like they've done the same with Star-Lord. They've changed Star-Lord to fit Chris Pratt now. But Iron Man is a more snug fit with RDJ.
And this is not Affleck's strengths at all. They've taken away all of his strengths.
I'll say that, like, as this is a Tape Crusaders podcast, I think Affleck's work here is not as good as his work in Batman v Superman.
You can just tell how much less he cares at this point.
Like
they play in some ways. They actually play more to his strengths in this one.
Yeah,
because they give him a lot of chance just to kind of be charming and like.
Yeah. There were a couple of lines.
And Affleck's a pretty charming dude.
Yeah, he is. There were a couple of lines of his I really, really liked. Like he says how Superman is more human than I am. Stuff like that I thought was well done. That seemed a very Joss Whedon-y thing. But there are massive things that are, like, he says some really lame jokes. And like, obviously, okay, so the level to which he hated Superman and Batman v Superman was very extreme. And they had to get to a point where we're on the same team. But I think they tried so hard to bring it back the other way with lines like, I don't not like you. It's like, oh, come on. You could have just said, I don't like anyone, or something like that. That would have been a more natural way to do that. Like, just the way he has done a complete 180 to, like, Superman's biggest fan. I don't know, some of the dialogue he had to give when, like, pitching the team to the likes of The Flash and Aquaman, it was very... I can't imagine that dialogue coming off good for anyone. Like, some of it was just so clumsy, but
it's really, really not him. It's like you would have to find an actor who takes themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And like that's part of the joke, is that like Batman takes himself too seriously.
Yeah.
And that's a far different tone than what they're going for.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, like Affleck he's really sleepwalking through this role.
Yeah.
He's also his build is also so weird.
Yeah.
It's like I can tell it's muscle, but he just kind of looks fat.
Because he's like 50 something, isn't he? Like.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's in his 40s, and like his face does not respond well to whatever like muscle diet he's on, so he just looks fat. And so much. You know what? The thing with this movie is, I feel like I'm watching like a DC animated movie. But like one of the shitty ones, where it's like they've got 70 minutes to like do 10 characters at once, and it's all just kind of playing on what we already know about these characters based on the fact that they're so familiar in pop culture, as opposed to actually earning it. It's like the Michael Caine Christian Bale relationship was earned in those movies. Like they weren't just playing off the idea that we know what Bruce and Alfred are like.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think in theory Jeremy Irons is a good casting for Alfred. I just don't like the material that has been handed to him to read for a lot of it.
Well, but it's just like, it's all based on just what we already think of Alfred and Bruce. Like, they don't get any time to establish their own dynamic, their own rapport. And it's just like, Alfred wants Bruce to find love. Alfred pretends to be relatively indifferent. It's all just so basic. It's like, it's skipping... They just skip too many steps.
Well, I think a lot of it is they are intentionally going for this older Batman who, like they make reference to some events that happened in past Batman movies. Like, obviously this isn't the Nolan verse, but you can sort of vaguely say
it feels
some of these past Batman films happened to this guy who suddenly started looking like Ben Affleck. And like by putting him at that point, they are doing things like relying on your pre-existing like perception of that relationship with Alfred. But
it feels far more like a spiritual sequel to the Burton films at times. Even the look of Gotham in here is it's much more gothic. It verges on cartoonish look at times.
When I just before talking to any other humans about this, I saw it and came out and had opinions. I thought, oh cool, it's much more colourful. Like after just being this washed out, dreary, like Superman's costume is so dark blue, it's almost black, like all of that, and it was like, oh, it's colourful all the time. And the point where I really noticed it was both the Gotham scene at the beginning and when Wonder Woman meets up with Cyborg in the street and like all the lights are off, but you could still sort of see everything. And I thought, I mean, at times it's almost a bit too colourful, but I prefer this to this sort of like slow motion, dreary, washed out, saturated colour palette. But then I've started to hear that some people actually don't like how colourful it was, so what the fuck do I know?
I definitely prefer what they were doing here, but then, the climactic sequence felt very Zack Snyder. Like, it felt like... Like, why are we suddenly on Mars? Like,
well, that's so many superhero films generally, but also DC just cannot resist going there. Like, I hate that they did that at the end of Wonder Woman. After everything they were doing, for it to end in basically the same... Like, if I put the final fight from Batman vs Superman and the final fight from Wonder Woman next to each other, obviously some slightly different things are happening, but it looks very similar, and I hate they keep going there, but...
Yeah, and this was the same thing.
I've got to say, Marvel
was the same thing.
Not guilty of it. Like a lot of Marvel movies do. After 2 solid acts of stuff, their third act just descends into CG nonsense, and it's like, well, I guess you can't pin this entirely on DC, but
that's a categorical weakness of Marvel. Yeah. But they do other things well enough that you can usually be forgiving of it, or they hire charismatic enough people to be Lee Pace is a charismatic motherfucker. Like that, his character was shit in Guardians of the Galaxy, but you listen when that man talks.
Yes.
Like Cate Blanchett has a nothing role in Thor, or at least it should have been a much better role because it easily could have been. And I love the actor who they hired as Steppenwolf. Sirhan Hens is a really, really good actor. Like, when you talk about an actor who made the most out of so little, like his performance in Game of Thrones was like exactly that. Like he gets 5 episodes as Mance Rayder, and like you are sucked into everything about Mance Rayder, and you want more Mance Rayder because of how good he is in the role. And this is just like a total generic CGI villain.
Yeah, as Steppenwolf, like his CG doesn't look quite finished in a way. It's just here's a huge dude who's just, the most powerful and wants to kill everything. Again, this. It's
just so nothing. It's just so...
We'll come back around on my thoughts on this, I think, towards the end of this, because I want to contrast it to where I think they're going. But
I think a couple things to bring up before we, look at a few characters. So they introduced Steppenwolf.
Yes.
And right when I was watching this, I was trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who was very frustrated by the lack of female superheroes, and was so happy that Wonder Woman did a decent job of it. And how did they decide to establish Steppenwolf in this film? Just by slaughtering
every Amazon
after Amazon after Amazon after
easily,
Amazon.
And just calling them girls and and
I'm just and then they have to be saved by a team made up of 80% of men. In the world it has to be saved by it's just you have no fucking idea what you're doing.
Yeah,
it just shows how much how lucky Wonder Woman was and how much of a fluke it was. It's just you don't get it.
I mean, I can see how their story is there's 3 mother boxes. The Atlanteans have one, the Amazons have one, men have one. Obviously, men is the Justice League, so the other 2 have to have their boxes taken away. So I can see why you would on paper write down Steppenwolf beats the Amazons, Steppenwolf beats the Atlanteans, but the execution of it was not in a way that benefited what they built with Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I mean, and that doesn't even get into the issues with the new costumes that are far more sexualized, how they shoot Gal Gadot ass first in every shot.
When she walks, they're all jumping off the ship or something, and they're just extreme close up on her butt and just laughter in the seats around me. I was like, yeah, cool, and, did that. Also, when he goes to fight the Amazons, and it's him beating down several of them for several minutes. And then when he goes to Atlantis, he has a slight underwater fight with 2 or 3 of them for a minute and a half. And it's why did you do this extended sequence where he smushes this good thing we like?
If I was a female fan who was really excited about Wonder Woman, I would just be grossed out by it. But I was grossed out by it. But
I didn't actually really think about it at the time, but you are right.
But just even just from a callous business perspective, what are you doing? Why are you trying to, like, how do you not realize how that could alienate fans that gave you so much money for Wonder Woman?
Yeah. And like the Amazons were like looking cool, like as they were doing this sort of reverse heist with the box, but then it's like, but then he just squishes them all. It's like, oh, well,
all of them, yeah,
like, fucking great.
And, and it's like this weird balance where it's like we don't even know who any. There's only one woman there that we know who she is. She manages to stay alive, but then like just to like serve up these nameless women for him to kill to do it after everyone fell in love with like Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
just
and like specifically
so
the
dumb.
thing I liked best about Wonder Woman was Themyscira, and I said in writing and in possibly in podcast, what I desperately want for a Wonder Woman sequel is more Themyscira, like have her go home and deal with. And, like, you know, they've now, for better or worse, done that, because she's going to go home and they're all going to be fucked up. But to take my favourite part of that movie and stomp all over it with Steppenwolf is not great.
Yeah. But that's, like, I just thought that was so dumb. All right, I guess we should dive into the characters.
Yeah. I mean, we did Batman for the most part. Like, yeah, he's sleeping through it, is Affleck. Like, he's done the 180. He now is trying to form the team, and he wants Superman back to be the figurehead of it all. And yeah, it's just a lamer version of Batman after, you know, him being the highlight of that not great movie.
Yeah,
Batman
I mean,
v
like,
Superman.
It just seemed to be patently obvious that he did not want to be there anymore. Like,
yes, indeed.
You know, Jeremy Irons doesn't get a ton to do. He's fine with it. He's not someone who I would ideally cast in the role, but I think it's a valid interpretation of it. Almost baffling is why they even bothered to cast J.K. Simmons, as why James Gordon's in this movie at all.
Well, I assume there were more scenes that didn't appear.
Yeah, but but also it's like when you're dealing with the scale at which they're dealing with, like a city police commissioner does not really have a role in that, unless you like, or you have to really ham-fist him into it, like. Where it's just like, 'cause he would die when he faced any of these bugs, which are just flying around Gotham City, by the way. Yeah, so Batman is not great. I say we should. I think we should follow the film and build up to Superman. We'll discuss it.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, I'll good go. Back as Wonder Woman.
I thought she was good again.
I thought she was good again.
I think she did a good job. Like she has little moments where she sort of makes connections with the rest of the team, and like. I did like sort of Bruce calling her on her shit about like, why don't you go be a beacon? Like, you are inspirational, but you hide. I thought that was a decent note to play. I wonder if the script originally called for her to essentially be the one that strikes the final blow, or if that came after Wonder Woman like was huge. I actually can't remember if she does do the final blow, but there's a lot of scenes that are set up in a way where it's her versus Steppenwolf, and like she was very key in like dealing the final blow or whatever. But yeah, I feel that was necessary. Like, you got one woman on the team, so you better make her good.
Yeah, she's good in the role. She's Wonder Woman. She's very much. I think she's the Chris Evans of the Justice League in that. They need to hang on to her, and they need she's going to be the anchor for these movies going forward, pretty clearly. Ezra Miller plays the Flash. I enjoyed him.
Yeah, I like the scenes with his dad. It was Billy Crudup, wasn't it? It
was Billy Crudup.
Yeah, as a Snyder callback there, Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, I like those little moments. You know, his dad sort of telling him to like move on and all that, and him wanting to do anything he can and get the lowest job possible in a crime like all that. I thought was good stuff. I think, again, as I said earlier, a lot of those jokes fell flat because we've seen them. But
yeah,
I think they did a wise thing by making him completely inexperienced and like have things like anxiety, which is like a thing that does not ever really come up with these heavy hitting characters. And just having him be a normal dude who happens to have these crazy powers, it's like, yeah, just because I can run fast doesn't mean I can fight. I think that was wise, because there are so many situations where you're like, well, why wouldn't you just get the Flash to go in and solve this for you? And they got around that, I thought, in a sensible way.
Yeah, and I think he and Affleck had good chemistry together. Like, I almost think this movie need to be like a buddy movie between those two or something like that.
Yeah.
Because... I mean, we'll get into it later, but obviously, like, Superman's, like, resurrection doesn't mean anything, like, an hour after he died in terms of the film like, you know, like, he just died an hour ago, essentially, like, but now he's alive again. like they needed some space between Batman versus Superman and the Justice League.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of like a buddy movie with Affleck and Ezra Miller probably would have been a better thing to do here.
I think once upon a time they had it announced as Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, and people sort of revolted against that. But I would imagine their plan was go the whole of Part 1 with Superman dead.
Yes.
And the final shot is he's alive again. Which
Yeah.
probably would have been better, but I also am sick of Part 1, Part 2 movies, so...
Yes. And, I think you can... I still think the Infinity Wars are going to be Part 1, Part 2.
I think so,
but
too. I think they're just softening the blow by taking out the explicit naming of it.
Yes. And I think that's a wise like, in terms of marketing decisions, I think that's a wise thing to do. But, like, I think, like I said, like, I thought in a lot of ways that was probably my favorite part of this movie, or at least it was the part of the movie that it did the best, which was just kind of like, hey, here's this surly, grumpy guy and this new young guy, and, they could have a buddy cop movie. Yeah. And I think that would have, like, I think a really tight, like, 90-minute Batman Flash buddy cop movie here would have been infinitely preferable to what we got. And would have been, but not just in the bubble, but, like, also, like, would have been a better building block to what's coming.
Yeah, probably. If they had their shit together a bit more and could get some of these many movies out there, it might help. Ezra Miller is certainly a charismatic motherfucker. Like, I think he can have good chemistry with a lot of people. And, I don't know if there will ever be an itemized Joss Whedon wrote this, the original writer wrote this list out there, but a thing that worked so well in the Avengers and DC had been lacking is trying to give it some heart, because it was all just broody and cool over on the DC side, and Joss seemed to really like those, like the little moments and giving it some of that. And I thought that some of what they did with the Flash and his father and just some of those types of things, those seemed very Joss Whedon-y to me. I don't know, but I did think that was a nice, because it's 2 hours long and you got all these characters, so I did think it was nice to give it that. Little things like that helped, I think.
And and then once again, that kind of just like, this is such a stupid talking point to belabor, but just like, if this was like a Flash movie where like Ben Affleck was the second role, like if this almost needed to be like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was just
saying, to be like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah,
with probably only just like a little bit of a bigger Batman presence, like that would have been good. Yeah. Although now I feel like I'm just copying Spider-Man Homecoming, so I will not be appearing on the next episode of Pitch This with Matt Waters.
It's not even called
all my ideas are derivative.
That's called Pitch Please, but whatever. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. Carry on. So I guess...
Don't worry, we'll edit that in post, everyone.
Yeah, of course we will. Aquaman, I guess, next.
Yeah.
Jason
I
Momoa.
Hated this.
No one else in the world could have said those lines and not look like a complete asshole. Like, some of the stuff they had him saying was so cringy. Like, my man! It's like, oh god, you're lucky this dude is like the most handsome, charming guy alive. Yeah, obviously, if you Google Aquaman, it's like, cool, better they went this way, but some of this dialogue was bad. So to move him away from the bright orange and bright green and the blonde short hair and all that, and
that's all fine.
Yeah, moving all that towards Jason Momoa as Jason Momoa, fine with that. But yeah.
So I'm going to connect this back to Flash. I completely understand. There's somewhat of a split reaction to Flash. I completely understand why someone would find Ezra Miller annoying. Mm-hmm. With the fact that I'm reading some feedback that they really don't like the Flash, makes sense to me. I dug him, you dug him, but it makes sense objectively.
Sure.
The universal praise that Jason Momoa is receiving for Aquaman here baffles me.
He's a very attractive man, Mike.
Just baffles me.
He's a very attractive man.
This was so trite and cliche.
It was.
And I couldn't get into it at all.
It felt like they'd gutted something from it. Like, this was the bare bones bullet point version of his story.
Yes. Yes.
I am in principle still down for that movie. I can't remember why. The director said something that I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. But, yeah, if this was, like, all I had to go on, I can't say I'd be like, oh, man, can't wait for that.
I would not be going, yeah!
My man!
My man!
Although I will say, that scene where he's accidentally sitting on the lasso of truth, pretty funny.
That was good. That had to be a Whedon scene.
Yeah,
We don't need to play that game, but like that had to be a Whedon scene.
Oh god.
Anyway, so like there's like anecdotally, I've been like noticing some comments online that were I think actually were perfectly encapsulated by the director of Thor, who in an interview he was asked who would he rather date, Loki or Thor. And he said, I wouldn't want to date Loki because I would never know what he'd want, and that'd be unhealthy, which is true. And far too many men are like Loki. But he's like, I would love to date Thor because I know exactly what he wants. He wouldn't get on the first date, but I know exactly what he wants. And like, I can appreciate why someone would feel that way, but like, I am tying this directly towards the infatuation with Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and like, these dudes are assholes too. Like, we don't need to like create this false dichotomy where like, oh, one group of guys is no longer an asshole because it's more in fashion to not think they're assholes. Like, these dudes are assholes too. Like, there's nothing likable about Jason Momoa in this movie.
Hey, he feeds the hungry. He brings them fish.
Okay, that's his one likable. Like, but he's just a self-involved asshole too. It's just like, come on, like the dumb, misunderstood jocks are not the heroes.
Do you think Joss was?
It's just that the nerds are also not the heroes.
Do you think they were trying to write him to be Thor? Kind of, like he's just up for the fight and like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Felt like he was serving the Thor role for sure. Yeah. That's what I was saying.
Well,
I felt like Flash was Spider-Man,
yeah.
Aquaman was Thor, Wonder Woman's Captain America, Ben Affleck is the shittiest Robert Downey Jr. ever, and I guess Superman's
kind of Hulk. Except he's not.
Hulk.
No, Cyborg, I guess, would be Hulk because he's all tortured.
Ray Fisher as Victor Stone Sever. He made very little impression on me.
Yeah, doing the rounds before this came out was that like he was the worst character in it of the main team or whatever. But
that's not true. Aquaman's the worst character.
I'm saying this is what was was going
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't like attacking you. I'm saying but like,
I think this is like his first movie. Like this dude's just done theatre work. Like he's in Batman v Superman in that little like hero or the Justice League scene. But he's done no films before. He wasn't like awful, and like in theory I like some of it, like him saying how he wakes up different every day and like, oh, I couldn't do that last night. That felt very Joss Whedon again. In theory I like that, but it was very empty. I don't know.
Yeah, it made very little impression on me. Yeah. They did not give his relationship with Joe Morton nearly enough time.
No, because I like Joe Morton.
I like Joe Morton. Yeah. I just like, you can't. Yeah. They really didn't give it any time. It was hard to care about.
I don't know if I like the chances of that Cyborg movie happening as a solo movie. I think you got to package them together with someone else.
If it wasn't for the fact that Wonder Woman 2 is 100%, 1 billion% going to happen because of how much money the last one made, I think this would have been the end of DC.
Really?
As like, I think they would have pulled the Universal monster. I think they would have just closed up shop on this extended universe thing and started over. I think this would have been the end.
Wow.
But Wonder Woman made too much money. Like there's literally not a chance in the world they give up now.
Wow.
But let's say if Wonder Woman performed disappointingly, like didn't lose money per se, but like wasn't a thing, I think this is the end of it.
Didn't Suicide Squad like make money even though everyone said it was awful?
It did.
And like there are still an army of Hot Topic Harley Quinns out there wanting to watch Joker and Harley be abusive to each other.
I'll say this. I think this would have been the count. This would have instituted the countdown of when does it end. Yeah. Maybe that's a more measured take on it.
Maybe this thing makes a ton of money in the next few weeks. I don't know. But
first, I mean, it cost $300 just in production. It probably put another $200 to $300 in marketing. Yeah. That's a lot of money. Even if you make money on that, you're not getting a lot for it. All right, and then I guess we should wrap it up with the return of Superman.
Lois Lane is there.
Well, I was going to say tie all the Superman components together.
I'm just going to say straight up, this is the most I've cared about Superman in a long time.
Same.
He was smiling and pleasant and not just a moody asshole, and that was good.
Someone pointed out that they were essentially doing a thing where he rediscovered his joy de vivre because he was brought back for life, and I didn't pick up on that. I just thought it was just like different writing. Like it was just like, hey, someone else is writing this movie.
I think it's both.
Superman is happy to be alive, and he's going to have some fun.
Yes, finally.
I am okay with that.
And like even the action of it, because I mean, like Zack Snyder, like I guess he thought he was just making like a super action heavy thing with like destroying whole cities and the giant dubstep cannon and the fights with Zod, but I thought even like the whole team against Superman fight was better done than any Superman action scene they'd done before. In the current continuity or whatever. I thought it was well done. I liked, Flash running in what we see as slow motion, and like Superman like looking at him as he goes, and then like swinging for him, and he's barely missing. I thought that was already well done. And then him just sort of turning up and like throwing Steppenwolf down and lasering him, and I'm like, right, what are we doing here? It's like, yeah, this is all good. There's always going to be the difficulty of, right, what do you do? How many like unkillable things can they think of to fight Superman? But in this one isolated incident, I thought this was a good Superman appearance.
Yeah, and the mid-credit scene with Flash was perfect.
Yes, that should have been the end credit scene. Because, I thought they do like the one that's like, this is the big setup for the next movie as the middle scene, and then at the end they do a funny one. So I thought they should have swapped those. But
that's what Marvel does. So I can appreciate them going the opposite way.
Fair enough.
But also, I remember definitely an episode of the Superman cartoon show from the 90s that did this storyline. I heard from somebody else this was a big thing in a comic at one point or another.
Smallville did it, I think.
Yeah, probably. So,
they have a little race.
Good use of the mid-credit scene there. Actually, probably a better mid-credit scene than Marvel's done in a while.
Yeah, Marvel have been phoning it in lately, I think. With those.
Someone's been speculating that it seems like they don't want to do them anymore, and they don't know how to stop.
Yeah, that's happening. I think like Kevin Feige's been getting out there and being like, yeah, there isn't one, stop it. But then they have to. But you've sort of trained your audience to expect them now, so you're just going to end up with people being disappointed when they don't happen.
We should comment on Amy Adams.
Amy Adams, yes, sure. Lois Lane, good.
Is there?
She's fine. I don't know. It's difficult because I mean, she's a big star, obviously, a very good actress, and you have her under this contract, and like, she's an obvious catalyst to like get Superman to remember who he is, etc. But there's just not quite enough there that she sort of is eating screen time that could have been better used. But then maybe she could have gotten some better screen time herself. Tricky.
It's I don't know. It's just kind of it was a bleak role in this case. Her lines like "I'm sorry I wasn't strong" was kind of like weird and kind of cringy.
I was like, "Are you confessing?" Yeah.
There was one great moment that had to be a Whedon thing. When
Diane
Lane
thirstiest
says,
woman.
You're the thirstiest woman he ever met. I am howling in the theater. No one else understands it.
Exactly the same.
I couldn't believe it. I was the only one laughing in the theater. I thought that was one of the funniest things in the movie. Yeah. I thought it was the funniest thing in the movie.
And Amy gives that little smirk until she corrects herself and says hungry. So it's like, okay. Yeah, I for sure thought that was on purpose and was meant to be a joke, but hey.
Okay.
Before we do that, what did you make of the little flashback scene to, the time Steppenwolf came before, and you have all these there's a Green Lantern, and Ares from Wonder Woman is back, and Zeus is there. There's all the characters, and there's Green Lantern there. Did that?
I was wondering if Ares, like David Thewlis, is like clearly on screen.
I didn't notice him, but then when I was reading the credits, I saw Zeus and Ares, but I didn't my eyes didn't go over to see who played, and I was like, okay. And I'm now looking on Wikipedia and it says David Thewlis is in it, so hey.
Yeah, I was looking for some confirmation of that from somebody. Yeah. But I don't know enough about the mythology of DC world to really care.
I just thought it was like a cool little world building scene.
No, it was. It's kind of like in that weird like Thor territory too, where it's like you kind of have to commit to the idea that like these people were there long before us. Like you can't just kind of like half-ass it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's always kind of been an issue for me with the Thor movies. Just Anthony Hopkins is like thousands of years old and it was on Earth 1,000 years ago. Like that seems relevant. That seems like information we should know or know more about. In some ways, this was actually better than that, but I find that aspect of it very confusing, or just not very. They don't pay a lot of attention to it, but it was fine. Yeah. I thought it was a good way to remind people that the Green Lanterns exist in this world.
Yes, they've got a difficult task on their hands with that because Green Lantern has that enormous reputation as being like the worst superhero movie out there, and I don't know if it is or not, but that's going to take some work.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've smartly stayed away from it just to give themselves some distance. The problem is, it's like there's a reason why Marvel's not making another Hulk movie. Like
Well, they're not allowed to, for one.
Are they really strictly not allowed to?
Yeah, Universal still own the rights to Hulk solo movies somehow.
So how did they make Incredible Hulk then?
Because Marvel didn't outright make. It's all complicated. Those
Well, I mean,
first few
Disney didn't
MCU
own them
movies
yet.
are like out by Paramount or whoever, and yeah,
but clearly, like if they wanted to, they could try to arrange some sort of agreement to make
I think then,
right?
if they paid a lot of money, probably. But
Yeah, so like it's like whatever.
I feel both Ruffalo and Feige have said more than once, like, yeah, we can't make one, but
I think my point is that if they really, really
I'm
wanted
sure
to,
they could probably make
they
it happen,
could.
yeah.
Like they would it probably would not be as financially savvy for them to do so. But anyway, my point is just like when something doesn't work, like you need to give it some space.
Well, if you go to entertherealworld.com and look at our roundtable discussion on Thor Ragnarok, you'll see I said something to that effect where like people may think they want a Hulk solo film. They probably actually don't.
Yeah.
It's better to make him a ensemble and have him give people to play off. Right, so after many, many, many credits, because there's so much CGI in this movie, we are treated to Lex Luthor in prison, except, oh no wait, it's just some random guy. Where's Lex Luthor? Well, he's on a boat partying.
I thought that actually might have been it, by the way. I thought that was literally going to be the end credit.
I know,
like,
I was like,
DC, you're the worst.
And then speeding towards his boat on a smaller boat is Deathstroke, being played by Joe Manganiello. I don't know how to say his name. Manganiello? Whatever.
Sure.
As Deathstroke, and they basically are saying we're going to form our own little team. I've recently been reading a Deathstroke run, so I'm kind of like super obsessed with Deathstroke at the moment, so I was like, yay! But aside from that, I think that to go from Steppenwolf, who is just this giant generic CG villain, and it's like, oh, he's going to end the whole world, and we all have to team up to stop him. Where everyone thought they would go next is Darkseid, who is basically DC's Thanos. And I think at one point they even said that's what they were going to do. Like, part 1 would be Steppenwolf, part 2 would be Darkseid, or some shit like that. I don't know. And I actually think it's really wise to not do that, and instead go in what I assume is this direction of human or human-like villains in an ensemble, and just sort of like each one will have a counterpart to the Justice League, and just do a story that isn't about the end of the world, but is something a little bit more intimate and sort of like playing off their fears and weaknesses and whatever. Like I think that's a great decision if that is what they are doing. I could be wrong, and it could just be like Luthor's built a huge machine that's going to blow up the whole world. But
I think it's a logical inference to make that is the direction they're going in, and I certainly hope that they are.
Yeah.
I don't trust that they are. Right? There's no reason to trust that's what they're actually doing.
No,
right?
I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, they need to build some trust, and they need to build some street cred, as it were. Wonder Woman helped. I personally think this didn't hurt, but yeah.
I think the lack of enthusiasm reflects, people's desire, people's hunger, thirst, if you will, for DC films right now, and it's
I see
lacking.
what you did there. Yeah,
like an average, like this is. I would say this film is almost unquestionably better than Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, or Batman vs Superman.
Sure.
But I'm not at all surprised that it's going to make less money, because it's not like this is a huge course correction. This is just like, okay, there's a chance we are no longer heading directly for the iceberg.
Yes.
Maybe we've pushed it in a different direction, but also maybe not.
Yeah.
And until there's actually sense that these films are going to be reliably good, like, people are not going to get excited for them and not going to go see them en masse. Now, before we finish talking about that, so Deathstroke.
Yeah.
His look.
Deadpool is a ripoff of Deathstroke, yes.
That's what I was going to ask.
100%. Deathstroke
like
existed first. Slade Wilson, Wade
Wilson. Death. The look is ridiculously similar.
Yeah. The story goes that the guy that designed Deadpool drew him, showed it to someone, and went, that's Deathstroke. And they were like, no, it's not. That may or may not be true. It's a strong rumour in the industry. The problem they have here is that people now know and love Deadpool, so it will be seen that Deathstroke is the copy, but it is the inverse.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't
Deathstroke has a nuanced character. He's sort of Batman-ish. I would be excited for a solo movie with him. But
I'm just excited for them to, reveal to us that Flash Thompson is, Deathstroke. I'm really excited for that crossover. He played.
I remember.
And the Ring. Okay. Just it's been a few months since Spidey is.
Yes.
DC still sucks. That's the thing. There's nothing from this film you can be like, "Hey guys, it's all gonna be fine now."
No, but I mean that would take a Herculean task, I think. And even if they did make a hell of a movie, that would still be 2 out of 5, which isn't heavily in their favor.
But it'd be 2 in a row.
Sure, absolutely. I like this film. I don't disagree with any criticism you've leveled against it, but I sat there for 2 hours and I either was enjoying myself or I wasn't like, oh, this is bad. Which I did do during some of those previous DC movies. I think it depends, measure your expectations. I tend to generally only see superhero movies, and I obviously have that proclivity towards superhero comics and whatnot, so I care about these characters, so I'm just happy these things exist. If you're the type of person that sees dozens of movies a year and leans more towards stuff that is high drama, or you're looking for something more, I can't sit here and tell you, oh, you should see Justice League, man. But as someone who likes superhero movies, I would probably recommend this. It's not Avengers, it's not up there with the best superhero movies, but it's 2 hours and I thought it went by breezily, as you said, easy to watch. So yeah, I think, I don't know, it's very easy to build this narrative because people want to, of Marvel versus DC and DC sucks and this, that and the other. I think we need to cool it on all that kind of shit and just take each movie as hey, do you like these kind of things? I do. I enjoyed this. I could 100% see why a person wouldn't.
Yes. It's just at the end of the day, though, this just wasn't anything truly notable. That's
the thing.
It was a solid bunt single at best.
Yeah, I would say I enjoyed this and everything I just said. But I don't think I ever need to see this again. There is no replay to this. I probably had a stronger response to this on first view than I did Wonder Woman. But I have since rewatched Wonder Woman, and I probably will watch it again in the future, whereas I don't think I ever need to see this again. It's okay, I've seen it, cool. There's not a huge amount of subtlety or deep lasting meaning to it or anything like that. Or not even that, but just, there are little moments in some of these kinds of movies where you're I would like to see that again, but this is just, you get it, you're done. I don't know, I would say I am slightly more optimistic about their future now than I was a year ago. Now I've seen both this and Wonder Woman. I will say, forget being consistently good, they need to have some movies actually come out, because they have so many announced. And I think one of them has had any kind of filming done, and it's Aquaman. But, there's a Flash movie, there's a Batgirl, Nightwing, Suicide Squad 2, Joker and Harley, this supposed Martin Scorsese Joker movie. It goes on and on and on and on. Cyborg, etc. Wonder Woman 2, as you said, will 100% happen. They've allegedly cast both Shazam and Black Adam, The Rock. That's a huge person to have under contract if they do. But just film something.
You can tell that the Rock bubble's about to burst.
Oh yeah, I think that
he's had a couple of financial duds.
Yes,
people are finally recognizing that he's a bit annoying as a personality too.
Yes.
And these next slate of films from him look really bad,
and
are going to get really bad reviews.
And
the Gorilla movie Rampage, and they're going to get really bad reviews, and I think by the time that film is out, his time is going to be over.
I think The Rock was secretly good in films no one gave a shit about, and then he started getting huge roles, and now he's become bad. And he will stop getting those roles.
Also these action stars, it never lasts.
No.
It's not.
I think the days of the lasting action star are gone. We will not.
And it's impressive that he was able to bring it back for
as
long as he's been able to. But it's really about to burst with him just as DC releases that movie.
Yeah,
I think it's going to coincide perfectly. I really, really just want there to be a good Batman. Not to somewhat tie it all back.
Yeah.
I like good Batman movies,
Yes.
and there are so few of them. There's so few of them at this point. And
if you look at the larger numbers, yeah, you are right.
it's the odds at this point, like, you have to assume that, you know, it's not going to get any better as long as Affleck's in the role.
I think he's going to be bounced.
Yeah,
like, he's dropped down from writer and director and star to just star, and he's even said, I think the quote is like, he would like to continue to portray Batman as long as DC want him, but he'd be willing to explore a way to get him out.
Yeah.
And the rumour is Matt Reeves has already named someone who he wants.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, I think that is the rumour. That might be good. As it's Batman, but I don't know. They have a lot of shit to sort out.
More so than that, though, it's just like, to me, the entire DC film universe is somewhat irreparably tainted at this point.
But it has that stigma, as I said.
Nothing about it feels. I can't suspend my disbelief for it. It's like, none of these like random appearances mean anything to me. None of them. It's like, I have more investment in Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum in Thor 3 than anything that's happened in the non-Wonder Woman film.
Yeah. I mean, with Marvel doing so much business and DC have like the most iconic superhero characters at their disposal, of course they should try, but this isn't working and something needs to happen. I think they would be wise to, I think they've talked about this, but try and just do some stuff that isn't necessarily fully connected and just try and make some isolated good movies and then cross them over occasionally. But just go make a fun Batgirl movie that isn't tied to anything. Just go do that.
Yeah. It just feels like a sunk cost at this point. It feels like they're just doubling down on something that's never going to pay off in the end.
Yeah. They do need to radically shift how much money they're spending on these and concentrate more on just making them modestly good. Yeah, and like, you know, Fox, I mean, this is probably a larger conversation for another time, but like, you look at where Fox were about a year ago, where all they had on the slate really after Logan was Dark Phoenix, and it's like, that sounded meh. And
it still sounds meh.
Sure, but in the time since then, like, you know, they put out that New Mutants trailer, Deadpool 2 is coming, Gambit is apparently back on, Multiple Man is happening, you know, they're doing some different things, so...
And, like, it just seems like, I'm not convinced Multiple Man's going to be good, but I'm so happy that they're taking a completely random character and being like, let's see if we can make a good movie around him. Absolutely. This is great to me. It might be terrible. I run very hot and cold on Franco. Sometimes he works for me, sometimes he doesn't. I wouldn't even necessarily say the odds are it's going to be a good movie. But I'm so happy that they're trying.
Yeah, it's different. That's what Fox has decided to do. Rather than try and copy Marvel, they're just going to go and do some unique stuff. And like, I think even Legion, like, that isn't going to be included with their movies, but like, that was very different.
Yeah. And it's okay that, you know, it doesn't sound like The Gifted is good as we expected, but it's like, I don't care that they tried it. I'm not offended that they tried to make something like that.
Yeah.
And what I'll say is, I think you make a good point, is that we probably should readjust our expectations and stop trying to compare DC to Marvel. Mm-hmm. But if they want us to do that, they need to stop doing that.
Absolutely. It goes both ways. They can't try and directly compete like that.
If you're going to make the same style of films and you're going to make the same sort of style of universe, you're going to invite comparison to the people that have established that concept.
But, I mean, I feel a lot of deals were signed several years ago. Money men looked at things and said, do that, and they are committed to an extent to meet some of those demands, and hopefully, I would hope Wonder Woman being such a huge success after everything else wasn't, that would send a resounding message that, you know, you should do stuff more like that, and, you know, hopefully they gradually learn from it, and you know, occasionally they say something that sounds positive, but they need to make some fucking films and put them out and have them be good.
In terms of where the Tape Crusaders goes next, though, is it Batman and Gaslight? Is that the next Batman
Gotham by Gaslight.
Gotham by Gaslight,
yeah. That's that in February, I believe.
Okay, and that'll be fun too, because I have the comic, so I'm going to make Matt go and get a copy of the comic, and we're going to compare the two, because I really enjoyed when we've done that in the past. So
that was actually pretty fun. So we'll definitely do that.
And I think that's I think when appropriate, that'll probably be an exercise we'll try to do more and more.
Yeah, for sure.
I think because we enjoyed it with Logan, we enjoyed it with The Killing Joke, Year One. I think
we did Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
I certainly did. Watchmen, I think I might have pulled my copy of that out.
I pulled it out, saw how tiny the print. Nope. But yeah, so the Tape Crusaders, as you know, as we discussed, these podcast series, these are meant to be enduring. They're meant to exist within itself, not something you have to keep up with week to week. But they're also continuous because there's going to be no shortage of fucking Batman films coming out in our lifetime.
When they put that beacon up in the sky, we come and we record Tape Crusaders.
Yeah, and thanks for coming back and stopping by again.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some more content for you soon. We're going to keep it vague because schedules are difficult at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll have stuff for you.
I've become exceedingly flaky, and Matt's tolerance of me is clearly reaching its limit. So.
EnterTheRealWorld.com. That's 2 E's, REEL, world.com. Mike and Matt on SoundCloud. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere.